Hey, it's Jason from Pro Guitar Studio. Today I'm going to share with you my top tips for guitar picks. And guitar picks can be very subjective, so really in the end, if you go to a music store and you look at how many picks they have there, there's so many choices because people are individual, they like their own things. But if you're just getting started with a guitar, or if you don't know what you like, you don't know how to hold the pick or how to correctly use the pick in certain ways, like which gauge of pick should you be using, what material, what size, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to share some of those tips with you just to help guide you along the path. Now, like I said, everyone is a bit different. So over time, what you should take a look at is, what picks feel right to you. And even over the years that I've played for over 27 years, the pick choices that I've used over the years definitely do change. So sometimes I'll change to a certain pick and only to go back to the one I used before. It's not nothing I do like on a weekly basis, but it will happen over the length of a year or two, and my preferences change. Sometimes the picking style that I'm doing for something might change, and I need a different style of pick. So there's so many different choices out there. Let's just sort of narrow it down for the main choices you're going to need to start off. Okay, so if you like to strum a lot, you're strumming open chords, and that's your main goal, what I would suggest you to use is going to be just a regular size pick, guitar pick, nothing too small because you can get the smaller jazz size picks. But a regular size guitar pick, here's an example of an Ernie Ball pick right here. And what I would suggest to start off with is a medium gauge. Now this is a little bit worn off, so as to hold it up there, you wouldn't be able to fully see it. It's not even coming in focus yet, but it's a 0.73 millimeter. Yeah, it's not going in focus anyways. But 0.73 millimeter is a general medium gauge pick, and that's a great place to start. So a regular material, medium-sized pick, you can play around with different materials too. So when you go to the music store, see if you have one that feels correct in your hand or feels right to you when you're holding on to it. Start with that for strumming. Now, if you're going to be doing a lot of picking, like maybe your main goal is playing a lot of riffs, stuff from, it could be Metallica or any band that has heavier riffs, I would suggest a little bit of a thicker pick to start off. So maybe a 1 millimeter. And personally, my preference when we go to something a little heavier like that would be to use a smaller pick, a jazz size pick, which I have one right here. Grab that there. So it's a smaller size pick, and this is a Dunlop Ultex. I believe that's what this is here. Yeah, Dunlop Ultex, but it's called a Jazz 3 size. So the type of material doesn't matter so much as the size. And for me, I like these a lot for playing riffs or anything with single notes. If I'm playing a scale, I find it works really well, just because you don't have to pick as hard. So the reason why you'd want the medium gauge pick for strumming is that when you strum chords, you don't want that much resistance, right? You want the pick to have some flex to it. You want it to give. You don't want it to get stuck on the string. So if I'm strumming with my medium gauge pick, the pick will flex a bit, but with the thicker pick I was talking about there for riffs, that was the same strength of strum, but more of the pick is actually digging into the strings. It actually has more resistance, so my hand will get tired faster. So with a medium gauge pick, it gives you sort of the benefit of being able to have more endurance, more stamina. You can also try a thin pick. I just generally prefer to stay away from thinner picks only because you get more of the pick sound. So more of the, if I take this off here, I don't have a thin gauge pick here, but this will be a medium gauge pick. That kind of pick sound will be much more pronounced on a thin gauge pick. It can still sound good, but I don't personally use them. So once we have that out of the way, let's say you're strumming, right? That's your main goal. So with my medium gauge pick to start off, and as you work over time with your strumming skills, you might find you like a different gauge, and that's totally fine. So I'm not saying this is a one size fits all, but when you start to strum with this, what I want you to think of is that the pick should be sort of as an extension of your index finger to start. Okay, so you can play around with it from there, but try to hold it right between your thumb and your index. And so I'm holding that almost in the center of the pick. You can imagine there's a center point. That's where I'm holding it, and that's where I'm going to start off. And what I'm trying to sort of illustrate here is that I don't hold it from your knuckle to your thumb. So this kind of hold is very common for a lot of people that start off. But what happens there is that there's no give in the pick. A lot of that energy goes right into the strings, and it's very harsh. Right? It's a very harsh sound. So I can almost always hear if someone's doing this. If I put some volume on versus this, I can hear that right away, and it might be surprising to someone. They might know, it might be like, how can you tell what kind of pick I'm using or which way I'm holding it? It's really because of the sound, right? So if it's very harsh, very trebly, ice picky, I might think that they're using a heavier pick or holding with a knuckle hold. So right in between the index and thumb as an extension of your index, and over time you can play around with that angle. Another tip with the strumming, so when you're strumming, think of holding the pick in a loose way. And the first reaction for most people is to hold it tight, to sort of like really clamp down so it doesn't fly away, because that's a common thing that happens. But as you hold it tight, it will tense up your wrist, and it gives no flexibility to your forearm. So most of my strumming ability comes from, or my strumming motion, I should say, comes from the forearm, not my elbow, right? And so I need a really loose wrist with that, and that starts off with holding the pick very loose. And like I said, it's counterintuitive, but if you hold it tight, number one, it's gonna sound sharper. That's just from holding it, really clamping down on there. If I hold it loose, same strength of strum. It might seem surprising that those are the same, giving it the same amount of strum power. But here's tight versus loose. Okay, so just loosening that pickup will go a long way, because like I said, it will add some more flexibility to the wrist and keep everything loose overall. And in the end, tension is the enemy of playing smoothly, of speed, all those kind of things. So by tensing up here, you're already setting yourself up with a bad habit. Okay, so that'll go right up your arm to your elbow, your shoulder, all up here. You'll feel tense. You'll feel like you're bending over in the wrong way, sort of leaning over, hunching over because of that tension there. So try to loosen up. Think of flexibility as being one of the most important things you can do to actually build your strumming strength, speed, stamina, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so that is with the strumming with a medium gauge pick. Keep everything loose as you play through it. Now, if you do find that you're losing the pick a lot, some things can go a long way, like getting a pick that has some grip on it. So this right here is a Dunlop pick, I believe, as well. I have a lot of Dunlops here today. But this pick right here has a bit of a texture. I think it's also referred to as a cat's tongue. It's something you can grab onto, and it will prevent it from slipping away. Myself, I don't like these kind of picks myself because they're nylon, but that's just my personal preference. I like different materials as opposed to nylon, but this gives it that nice grip. So a lot of people find success with this kind of pick. So if you have trouble with the pick flying away a lot, hold it loose, get a pick with a bit more of a grip. You can also, some students have had success with like double-sided tape, things like that. Those can all help out while you're first learning how to hold that pick and not allow it to fly away. So those are some tips just to start off. If you're playing a lot of single notes, you can try a smaller pick or even just a thicker pick in general. 1 millimeter would be a good start. If you're strumming, 0.73, and material would be up to you totally. So you'll see at the music store, there's a ton of different materials. My favorite is a Dunlop Yellow. I don't have one here right now. That's my favorite to start off for strumming. And any kind of jazz 3 pick, about 1 millimeter, is great for single note picking to me. But a 1 millimeter pick in a standard size, let's say a Dunlop 1 millimeter, would go a long way for just getting started with single notes. So if you want to do both, have both of those on hand, or get a variety of picks, figure out what you like. So this is all, in the end, it's a subjective thing, which picks you enjoy, which picks work for you. So these are just my recommendations to start, but don't think by watching this that you need to follow that 100%. Okay, it's just giving you somewhere to start off so that you can figure out what works for you. So let me know in the comments below if you have a favorite pick and if you have any tips to add. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, more videos like this each week. And I'd love to hear if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like to see coming up.